A little bit later into the days, we record the Golfbet Insider segment with Rob Bolton this week, and the big fella is sufficiently caffeinated. I will leave it at that. It is good to see you. You are fired up, ready to go. I'm going to give you a few FedEx Cup points just for appearing here late in the season with only 2 events to qualify for the playoffs. What's happening, big man?
I'd rather you give me a couple more Cubs wins. That would be
No.
a little more enjoyable.
Sorry.
I'm good, man. Thrilled, selfishly, I'll say it, that we're done with the doubleheaders for 2024. It's a lot. I'm still sort of coming out of it personally with the sleep schedule, but yeah, having that extra little bit of time today to, as you always say, it's spot on, sufficiently caffeinate. I am there and I'm here. Let's go.
Are we trying to identify players around that top 70 bubble this week who might have a little added motivation? I talked to Lee Hodges, the defending champion. He's 73rd. All these guys know, Rob, it's the end of the line here.
I'd say no in a vacuum. However, if you're in a situation where you're looking at a guy like Lee Hodges versus a guy who's, let's say, 140th, because that's going to be the case in the betting world, it's just all relative to that context. It's possible. Certainly a guy who's 73rd is going to have had a better season than the guy who's 143rd, but you know, all of the other factors still play into it. Hodges probably is a bad example because he's the defending champion with a really great record overall at TPC Twin Cities, and that's why he's in the power rankings this week. De facto there. But there are other factors as well, as terms of and just the basics, you know, the course fit, recent form upon arrival, and everything else that's baked into the analysis in advance. So I'd say it depends, you know, like every question. I did write about it in the Golfbet Insider this week in terms of if you're in a situation, maybe in a tiebreaker, think about it. Plug it in. Guy who might be a little less stressed because his job is safe for 2025, but he's not in the playoffs. That's a curious case. Meanwhile, a guy who's 143rd has everything to gain, nothing to lose at this point. So he may be more of a green light. And again, so we go into the other thing. So it has a seat at the table, but it's not necessarily the loudest right now, despite what the guys are facing in reality with the playoffs just 2 tournaments off.
There's an interesting player to consider this week, and that's Erik van Rooyen, for a couple of reasons. First of all, plays college golf at the University of Minnesota. He's a 2-time champion. He's qualified for the Olympics. He'll be representing South Africa next week in Paris. He was not in your power rankings, but he was among your notables, so I know he is on the radar. Rob, how are we feeling about EVR as a top 10 prop at plus 350?
Yeah, so there's 7 guys in the field at TPC Twin Cities who are headed to Paris for the Olympic men's golf competition, officially dubbed. And EVR is one of them. You know, if he wasn't a Minnesota guy, he probably takes the week off. He doesn't need to play. He's set for status through next season as a winner. And of course, there are other goals in the meantime. But in terms of representing South Africa in the Olympics, that's a real special experience. This is a real special experience as well for him this week. As you mentioned, University of Minnesota guy. First start since his buddy John Trasamar had passed away last fall. The week that EVR won in Mexico was a really emotional experience. And I'm thinking about that in terms of some of these additional layers that he's facing this week at the 3M Open, where he has not played well before, which is also curious. But he's committed, and I'm buying that. If he wasn't, you know, he could certainly, as many other guys have, for lots of different reasons, when they're playing a local event or like a transplanted home event or a college regional event of some sort, a PGA Tour event where they have some roots of some sort, like EVR has this week. But he's there. He's ready to go. Travel plans are set. Top 10 is where I'm targeting. I'm going all the way in on it. Just think, I believe in him, and he's been playing incredibly well all season anyway, for the most part. So at plus 350, as I wrote it before I filed, may have changed in the meantime, but that's really nice value. You know, there are a lot of times where some of this stuff is really plastic and analytical, but this is more than that. And this is an opportunity for you to lean into somebody who has experienced a lot in the last several months and still delivered inside the ropes.
The man who's number one in the power rankings, not surprising at all. He's also the guy with the shortest odds this week. Talking about Tony Finau, whose scoring average at TPC Twin Cities across 20 rounds is 67.60. That is glittering. He won the event a couple of years ago, showed well in his title defense last year. And I guess, Rob, despite that glossy resume, 10-1 odds, not terrible.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was just about to look at it. I'm looking at, as we're speaking, granted recording, it's 11-1 at BetMGM, give or take a unit. Yeah, he was the obvious number one in the power rankings, number one in terms of the guy to beat this week. And love is the wrong word. I've assigned a lot of value to the fact that he missed the cut at the Open Championship, where a lot of people expected him to play well. So there's a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. And he gets after it at a place where he can annihilate it off the tee. It's a fair long track, but he's brought it to its knees, obviously, with the victory. It's a par 71 with 3 par 5s, and there isn't anybody else. I mean, top 5. Look, again, as we've talked about so many times, win is a real bonus. Top 5 for him, though, is really sort of the lowest expectation. That's the floor for Tony Finau this week.
I don't think we've ever spoken about Rico Hoey in this space, and I saw that he was 5th in the power rankings. I can't imagine he's ever been higher than that, but it is merited because he's having a very strong rookie season. He's on a little bit of a heater, was a runner-up recently, and with all that, you're getting plus 6,600 if you want to invest in Rico Hoey this week.
One thing I think I love more than this guy playing really well this summer, because we see it happen with a couple of rookies over the summer, and it has, and he's one of them. About 4 guys right now are just crushing it. Patrick Fishburne, also in the power rankings, Max Gracerman, and Max Meisner, also just killing it. All rookies, all chasing that first victory in the PGA Tour. And one of the things I love most about Hoey is the fact that he has this fan base that loves him just unequivocally, and it's fun to watch them have so much fun with him playing so well. And you can see the joy in Rico's face. He's really come into his own. He had a terrible first several months, and that's not necessarily unexpected for any rookie, but his especially was not good. Yet last year in the Korn Ferry Tour, he was 2nd in the all-around ranking, and that tends to be a tremendous indicator for future success on the PGA Tour. It's just taken him some time. I have Rico Hoey and Sam Stevens, who's number 6 in the power rankings, for a parlay top 20. Are you ready for this, Swanee? Plus 950. Couple top 20s from these guys. Now, granted, that's a lot to ask for, but I'd rarely go that deep into. It's nice that BetMGM makes this available. Wish they did it every week. At least by the time I file, sometimes they do it on Wednesdays after all the work is done, but not all the time either. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see both of those guys who are in the power rankings, who are playing well, for whom a top 20 feels like a floor for them at plus 950. Both of them have to do it, but this is the time to lean into that for a full unit.
Nick Dunlap is the first player to win as an amateur and a professional in the same season, and he's still just 20 years of age. Coming off a victory a week ago, and still not locked in for the playoffs, because his first win at the Amex, he didn't pick up any FedExCup points or cash because he was still an amateur. But Dunlap is now a professional victor as well, and 14th in the power rankings, and at 40-1 to win here this week in Minnesota.
I'll say this positive spin about him is that he's closer to the FedExCup playoffs than you and I are combined. So there's that. But yeah, he's not necessarily locked. I was looking at the math. He would have to have an inside straight from the other guys, and obviously miss a couple cuts not to make it. He's got to be about 99% if you're going to do one of those Monte Carlo situations. But yeah, look, he climbed 27 spots on the leaderboard at Barracuda with 19 points in final round 62 stroke play in that modified Stableford scoring. That's just not a day anybody expected. 7th to last pairing. It happens, and that's one of the beautiful things about that format, and especially about that course, Old Greenwood, and then on a Sunday. I wish it's a par 4 finish. That's the only thing about that tournament. I wish it was back to a par 5, but whatever. It's still an incredible experience for Dunlap. He's 14th in the power rankings. He's done really well. He's more of a top 25 guy, so I'm not leaning into a top 20 necessarily, maybe a top 40. You're not going to get a lot of value there. Congratulations if you're on board last week. And when you woke up on Sunday, you certainly did not expect to have a winner on your card in Nick Dunlap. But dude's a closer. He's a closer. He's impressive. And if he gets into the playoffs, which it seems like he will, watch out.
I want to give you some props. We discussed Justin Rose as your outright sleeper to win at Royal Troon last week. And your man hung in there and for a long time until Xander Schauffele just kind of snuffed everybody out on Sunday. So I feel like you've got the hot hand, big fella. And that leads me to your outright sleeper this week. And it's Pierceson Coody, who nearly won just a couple of weeks ago, losing in a playoff. And somehow, despite his pedigree and his strong performance as a rookie, he is at plus 10,000, 100 to 1 for Pierceson Coody this week. How about it?
Well, first of all, thanks for the throwback there to Justin Rose from a week ago. I'm impressed that you remembered because I try to forget that. I've had a couple people reference that since, and one of my comments was, Ricky Bobby's, if you're not first, you're last. So the only thing that pays an outright is a win. And I'll probably be the only other person outside of Rose's family in orbit who will remember the fact that he finished T2 at Royal Troon on Sunday. That's the way things go. But yeah, he's the closest outright sleeper to come through. And then when I was looking at this week, and Pierceson Coody had stepped away from the Barracuda last week early, he was atop the power rankings when I filed and then withdrew, and Patrick Rogers defaulted into that position and gave it a good run. So Coody, I'm scrolling, I'm like, he's got to be down in the top 15, maybe shortest. Nope. And I kept going and kept going. It was one of those experiences. And I would love to say, Swanee, that since Sleepers published on Tuesday, Coody has dropped. No, he's still 100 to 1, like 24 hours later. So zero influence by the big fella there on Coody, which is good for everyone who cares to bet on the guy. The trajectory is what it is for him right now. He's going to win on the PGA Tour. He's going to win multiple times on the PGA Tour. This wouldn't surprise anybody. And why not right now? Everything is pointing in the right direction. A couple top fives in recent starts. Lost in the playoff a couple weeks ago in Kentucky. He's learning. And obviously, again, it would require a win. But 100 to 1 right now, I was flabbergasted that he wasn't at least half that.
I like the trajectory of Kevin Yu as well. He was kind of in the mix here in Minnesota last year, as I recall, after 54 holes. Faded on Sunday. He looks very settled to me as a sophomore on the PGA Tour with 5 top 10s this season. And I know he's got your attention as well. There is a top 10 prop available on Kevin Yu. Pays plus 550. That's pretty healthy value.
And this is more irony, is when I was writing about Kevin Yu on Tuesday morning for Sleepers, he was the first sleeper I slotted. I have a process that can change over time with how I put that page together. Depends on the tournament, depends on the markets. But Yu was the first one, and top 10 at plus 650. And then by the time I was done writing the other guys, I always check the odds to make sure they're up to date. And sure enough, he's down to 550. I'm looking over my shoulder. There's no BetMGM officials in my room watching me what I write. And I'm thinking, I know that some of the work sometimes over the years, I've been told this many times, will influence the odds, whatever. And that's encouraging. Fortunately, the odds don't get longer. Where Bolton's on it, so we can step away from this. We're going to be okay. That's the opposite experience here with you. He's going to have to putt better, and that's what's happened when he's had the top 10s. I think last time we talked about him was less than a month ago. I think at the time, and probably still, of all the golfers with at least 4 top 10s, he's lowest ranked in the FedExCup. So top 10s don't necessarily get you into the playoffs. He still has some work to do. When you're talking about a week like this where he's going to contend in most tee to green metrics at TPC Twin Cities, if all, air quotes, we need for him to do is putt better, well, he's proven that enough. He's scattered the top 10s around this season. The clincher is what you referenced at the very top of when we were talking about him here a minute ago, is that he played really well here last year. He knows the place. He has the experience, and now he can roll in and do it. He needed to get healthy again. He finally got through that last season, took the break, and he's been playing much better this year. Confidence is up for the guy. That's why he's top 10 at plus 550.
He is the Golfbet Insider from PGATour.com. You can follow him on the X at Rob Bolton Golf. We will reconvene next week. One regular season event remaining at the Wyndham Championship. in Greensboro. And we will also determine a week from now whether the Cubs will be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. I'll catch you then, big fella.
Look forward to it, but we will not need to wait until a week from now to know if the Cubs will be selling. See you then.